Live from the bridge at the Launchpad Studios in Huntington, New York, it's Sports Talk New York with your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Cardboard Memories, Clearview, Long Island, the law firm of Decolator, Cohen, and DePrisco, the Phoenix 2 Company, PIMS Incorporated, fueling brand performance for 30 years, Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, and Soho Table Hockey. Here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
And good Sunday evening to you. It is so good to be back in the saddle again. I know last week we had some technical difficulties. We were doing some back-end maintenance this evening on the radio station, and we are proud to be back, thrilled to be back. AJ, how you doing this Sunday?
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes,
I feel like one of those commercials here. So anyway, it's an exciting week coming up. There's a lot of things happened in sports in the past week. We talk about a lot of it tonight, and I'm pretty excited to talk, baseball. And I guess, we have to talk a little bit of the opening of the hockey season.
Absolutely. It's right there, and you are going to have to talk hockey. That is definitely something that I know you dread each week, and we've built that into the show as one of the things. But, you will be talking hockey. But right now, and this is our favorite part of the evening, I guess it's one of those live reads. It's time now for the Major League Baseball Report with John Coppinger, sponsored by Cardboard Memories, which is one of Long Island's most reputable memorabilia retail stores for over 29 years. The owner of Cardboard Memories, Scott Stimmel, is known for his knowledge and savvy of authentic autographs. He's been featured on HBO's Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel. Cardboard Memories possesses the honesty and integrity, something that AJ sometimes lacks, one would want and need from a memorabilia source. Scott personally works with each customer to ensure they understand the authenticity of each item. Every piece of autographed memorabilia is purchased directly from the source. Cardboard Memories are also specializing in custom framing, appraisals, and authentication. They're always buying collections, large and small. Let Cardboard Memories run your next charity fundraising auction. Call them to find out how they can help your organization at no cost. Cardboard Memories is located at 6401 Jericho Turnpike, Comac, New York. Visit them on the web at www. Why do we even have to say www anymore? Everyone realizes that. Cardboardmemories.com, or follow them on Facebook or Instagram. Welcome, John. And I'm not sure if that's you or AJ. It sounds like one of the two of you was suffering from acid reflux.
That was probably me. That's one of my charms, as my wife would call it something different than charms, but charms.
I was just getting to read, Mark.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's start off immediately with the New York Mets making headlines this week. I love this trade, and you know what? Back in the day when they traded for Travis d'Arnaud, there was a pitcher in there that was the throw-in who ended up being the major piece to this puzzle of that trade. Granted, I don't think, that Carrasco is going to overshadow Lindor, but I think this is a huge, part of the deal that is going under the radar. I mean, this guy pitched to a 2.94 ERA last year. Everyone loves Trevor Bauer, and I would love to add him to this mix, but, Carrasco's right up there. He's a comparable pitcher to Bauer. His whip and things like that, they're right there. Tell us what your feeling is on this trade, Johnny.
I think this is a trade you make 11 out of 10 times. And you said it. The fact that Carrasco was included in the deal makes this deal an A+ instead of an A. Listen, Trevor Bauer wants $36 million a year, and God bless him if he could get it. But he's one of those guys that is stringing everybody along. He's making free agency into The Bachelor, and that's fine. Listen, it's fascinating. But the Mets are not going to hold and wait for any one player. So Carrasco coming means that they can look at other things. They can look at other free agents, which are a lot more attainable in terms of not just money, but being ready to sign a little quicker than Trevor Bauer apparently is. So that Carrasco makes this an A+ trade.
There's a history of this. You see going along, they did the same thing by signing McCann and Royal Muto, who was holding people up for money, time, taking his time. They wanted to sign, move ahead. So it gets to the next question of where they go. And there are two big free agents out there left, I would say. One is George Springer, the other is DJ LeMahieu. Now, when doing this, the Mets are starting to take back New York from the Yankees. What do you think the possibility is of them totally taking back New York by going after LeMahieu to play second base instead of going after Springer to play center field?
LeMahieu's an excellent player. He's one of the best hitters in baseball. but I don't think he's the best fit for the Mets. And I wouldn't, I don't want the Mets to make a move just to take back New York. They have Jeff McNeil to play second base. They have J.D. Davis to play third. I know he's considered the weak link at this point. I think that center field is the much bigger hole to fill for the Mets. It has been since Carlos Beltran left. And it has been since they had a chance to get Lorenzo Cain and didn't do it. So if I'm the Mets, I get Springer and I get a reliever, and I'm ready to roll at that point. LeMahieu's great. I just don't think he's the right piece for the Mets.
So the thing is, though, John, right now, if you're the GM, how do you plan if you don't know if this is going to be a DH league or not DH league? For me, I'm not a big Springer guy. I don't know why all of a sudden everyone fell in love with Springer. The bottom line is, depending on if this is a DH league, and listen, I know AJ is going to hate this, but, I think you have enough hitting. I agree you need defense. I think Nimmo is an adequate center fielder, maybe below major league average, but he's okay. He's not going to kill you in center field, and he's an on-base machine. So, if you have the ability to pick up maybe a Yasiel Puig with incentives, I know he'd be Cespedes too, but I think in this type of lineup, I don't know if he'd be the head case that he's been in other places. I'm a Puig fan. I like Puig, but I think if we're going to go in your direction, let's say we're going to go in your direction and say, okay, Nimmo's adequate, but let's get a corner outfielder, I would go after Ozuna rather than Puig, if all things being equal. But then you still have to answer the question, what are you going to do with Dom Smith? Where are you going to play Dom Smith? And then that goes to the other question, like you said, is there going to be a DH or not? I can't believe that the commissioner of baseball, in the middle of an offseason where teams are trying to plan for their free agency, or this season they're not free agency, I still can't believe he's leaving this up in the air. It baffles me to no end. Because if they don't get Springer, if they let Springer go to the Blue Jays, and then all of a sudden Manfred says, oh, hey, by the way, we're going to have a designated hitter, I would be furious. Absolutely.
I would be absolutely furious at Rob Manfred.
Absolutely.
That's the whole point, John, that, they should. Why do you think the commissioners waited so long? Lots of teams, not just the Mets, are trying to plan this season. Now, the Mets in particular, look, we all agree the team works best if Dom Smith plays first base and Pete Alonso is the DH. But there are a lot of moves you have to make. Why do you think he's waiting so long? It's crazy.
It is crazy. But listen, if the DH is not implemented, then I'm perfectly comfortable with having Dom Smith in left field. But then if you're going to have Dom Smith in left field for his bat, I think you have to have somebody that can play center field. I don't think you can survive with an outfield of Conforto, Nimmo, and Smith. I think you need a real center fielder, and especially if you're going to have those two in the corners. Conforto's adequate. Smith isn't. I go get a guy. I go get Springer. He's a beast in the postseason. His numbers didn't fall off after the sign stealing scandal, and he could play center field. All around, I think he's the best fit.
All right, John, we got about 10 seconds before we have to go to break. Chicago Cubs, all-out fire sale. Schwarber gone, and it looks like Chris Bryant might be on the move. Where do you think Bryant moves up? And you know what? I don't want him here on the Mets. I think they'd have to give up too much, and I don't think he's that big of an upgrade over J.D. Davis. I think his game has fallen off.
I would agree with you, but the one thing I will say is that I think Bryant would come cheap because I think the Cubs, like most teams, are in sell-off mode. I think when it's all said and done, I think Bryant goes to Washington, and don't be surprised if Wilson Contreras is also traded. The chatter is that he might be an Anaheim Angel.
All right, John, we'll speak to you next week. John Coppinger, here each and every week with the Cardboard Memories Major League Report. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, Phil Regan, the Vulture, joins us.
Decolator Cohen and DeFrisco, LLP, is pleased to introduce their website, policeofficersrighttosue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line-of-duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceofficersRightToSue.com provides successful successful past results of line-of-duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, RMP accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at policeofficersrighttosue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's policeofficersrighttosue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
This is Howard Johnson, the 1986 World Champion Mets, and you're listening to Sports Talk New York with Mark and AJ on the 365 Sportcast Network.
Thanks so much, Hojo. Welcome back. Joining us now is a man who has earned varsity letters in basketball, football, baseball at Wayland High School in Wayland, Michigan. After 1 year at Western Michigan University, he signed with the Detroit Tigers in 1956. 63 seasons later, he was still wearing a big league uniform as he served as the Mets pitching coach for part of the 2019 season. It is a pleasure to welcome New York Mets fantasy camp favorite, the man, Dodger legend, and former teammate Sandy Koufax, nicknamed the Vulture due to his knack of earning saves in late-inning relief situations, the one and only Phil Regan to Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Coach. How you doing?
Hey, thank you very much. I'm glad you mentioned Wayland, Michigan, but I don't think many people are going to know where Wayland, Michigan is.
Well, you put it on the map, Coach. That's for sure. So unfortunately, this past Thursday, less than 3 months since he actually witnessed his beloved Dodgers clinch the team's first World Series title since he was their manager in 1988. Hall of Famer, one of the game's greatest ambassadors for the sport he loved during his 71 years with the Dodgers, Tom Lasorda passed away at the age of 93. You were lucky enough to know Tom, work with him, and even win an Olympic gold medal with him. Do you recall the very first time you met Tom and what your first impression was?
Well, I think first of all, you're always impressed with him, because of his enthusiasm, and he always he knows everyone. He remembers their names. He talks to you. He knows who you are. But I think I go back to when I went to the Dodgers in 1966. I was traded over there from the Tigers. It was kind of a different spring in that I went over to the Dodgers in Vero Beach there, and it was the year that Koufax and Drysdale held out all spring and trying to make $100,000 each, and O'Malley wouldn't give it to them, so they never came to spring training. And so I think that's probably the first spring that I really got to know Tommy, and just an amazing person, just charismatic. I mean, talking all the time and telling you stories, and it never seemed to be the same story. Always had something different. I think of the Olympics. I knew him before because I'd managed Albuquerque. I'd been his advanced scout, with the Dodgers for about 8-9 years. So I would go in and give the reports and everything. And he was sharp. He would say to me, I can remember one time he challenged me. I said, Darren Dalton is a high ball hitter. And he said, since when? He's always been a low ball hitter. And this bothered me. And so I talked to Claude Osteen the next spring. And he said, it's funny you say that because he was a low ball hitter, but he hurt his knee and he became a high ball hitter. I said, boy, Claude, you made me feel a lot better because Tommy don't believe it. So, but he was tremendous. I think of him, we went to the Olympics down in Australia, and we really weren't supposed to win anything. And, he would say, what you believe you can achieve, and he'd talk about guys pulling on a rope. If we got 26 guys pulling one way and one guy pulling another way, we're not going to win. He always had something that motivated everybody and kept them going. He built Ben Sheets up so big, Ben Sheets thought he was Sandy Koufax, and he pitched that shutout against Cuba 4-0 in the gold medal game. And Tommy promised him, if you win this game, I'm going to your wedding, and he did. That next fall, he went to his wedding. So he was just a tremendous person, and great storyteller. You could sit and talk with him forever. One of the last times I saw him was a couple of years ago. We were in the Dominican. They had each year they have down there a Hall of Fame presentation from all of the teams in the Caribbean, like Panama and Mexico and all over. and Tommy and I received an award, and I think, and just he was the same. He made you laugh just by sitting there looking at him. He'd always come up with something that would make you laugh, and he just, to me, he was just a tremendous person, tremendous manager.
It's so interesting you tell those stories because, and unfortunately over the course of 15 to 20 years doing this, when these type of personalities like Don Zimmer and various others pass away, you hear these stories and they're just so real. Even like Gary Carter, because then, people say, oh, was he really like that? But then when you speak to the people that really know him, yeah, he really was like that. Lasorda could walk in a room and light it up. You mentioned in '87 you began basically the 6-year stint with the Dodgers as their major league special assignment advanced scout. Tom was the manager of the Dodgers at that time, a period that included the 1988 World Championship. You mentioned your working relationship, but as a manager and overseeing a lot of the things, what were some of the things that he grew to expect from you and demand of you?
Well, a lot of the things he did was you had to work. I remember being on the road with him, and he was out throwing batting practice, all the time, and bring guys out early, make them work. He's a legend down in the Latin countries that in Caracas, he used to walk from one of the hotels all the way down and with Bill Russell every morning, and he made him from a center fielder into a shortstop. He just worked and believed in working all the time. I have to laugh. I think of things as I go along, but he was on his way. He was in Puerto Rico, and he was going to the Dominican. The president was going to give him an award, and he didn't have his passport with him because he didn't think he had to go to Puerto Rico, and they wouldn't let him on the plane. They said, "Where's your passport?" And he pointed to his face and said, "This is my passport." They let him on the plane, and he went to Dominican. They let him in.
Wow.
That was Tommy Lasorda.
Yeah.
He's just an amazing guy.
Absolutely. It's interesting too because, and I might have some of these facts wrong because I am getting up in age. But for some of our younger viewers that might not be aware of this, back in 1992, Tommy had 1 year remaining on his contract. The team went from winning over 90 games in 91 to losing 99 games, finishing last for the first time in 87 years. That, coupled with the fact that two Philadelphia area businessmen headed a group of 6 investors who had actually made a deal with the Giants owner, Robert Luria, in August of 92 to buy the team for $115 million, moved them to St. Petersburg, which eventually fell apart. One of those two men, interestingly enough, was Vince Piazza, a lifelong friend of Tom, and Mike Piazza's dad.
That's right.
So the thought at the time was that Tom might leave the Dodgers for the Giants. At around the same time, you were up for the Marlins' inaugural managerial job, late in 92, but you withdrew your name from consideration. What are your recollections of that period?
That's an interesting. You did your homework, but one of my goals was, as I was working and being an advanced scout, I always went down to. It's kind of interesting thing, how I got down to winter ball. One of the first years I went, Cookie Rojas invited me down to be his pitching coach. And then he said the next year you ought to manage. And I said, well, I would like to. And so he went to the owner, and I became a manager. And so then I set out the next year, and then I went to Escogido and managed there a couple of years, and then went on to Venezuela and managed there for quite a while. But one of the things I had never managed in the United States, but Cookie Rojas was then one of the top guys with the Miami teams, and he had called me and said, "Phil, you're going to be one of these top candidates on this for managing this team." So, and I talked to Fred Clare, and Fred and I were very close, and one of the things Fred said to me, he said, "Phil, Tommy is not going to manage the Dodgers forever," which he had been there a long time anyway. But he said, and so I turned that interview down. And Dave Dombrowski called me from the Marlins. He was president. He said, "Phil, I hope that Fred Clare has offered you something pretty good, because you've turned down the job with the Marlins, and Renee Latchman got the job there, and signed a 3-year contract. But that was maybe a mistake I made. But you know what? My goal at that time was to manage the Dodgers. I love the Dodgers, and later on, after I was managing Baltimore, I then got fired after 1 year, and then went to the Dodgers. And this was I'm telling you some stories because I don't think a lot of people know these things, but Mel Didier was one of the top scouts for the Dodgers at that time. I had an offer to go with Buddy Bell to Detroit as their pitching coach. Mel Didier called me, that this would be in 1996, and he said, "Phil, Fred Clare can't call you and tell you this, but I'm going to tell you what Fred's told me, is that Rick Dempsey, who was managing Albuquerque at the time, is not going to manage the Dodgers, and we want you to go to Albuquerque." And I'm thinking, well, that means maybe one day I'm going to manage the Dodgers. Right. So I turned down the Detroit job to go with the Dodgers, and I went to Albuquerque that year. Well, as things would have it, that was Tommy's last year, and that he, midway through the year, he had kind of a heart attack or something, and he was out for 6 weeks. Bill Russell took over, and he managed well. And then Tommy came back and said, I'm not coming back anymore. And so they named Bill Russell the interim manager, and I think they won it that year. They won the division. Right. And Fred said, we're going to re-sign Bill Russell, again to manage, because he won, which I understand. And I said, well, I really turned down 2 major league jobs, and I don't want to do another one. So then the Cubs came to me, and I became the pitching coach there for 2 years, and then of course with Cleveland another year. So all those times I wanted to manage the Dodgers, I was close a couple of times, but never got there. But it was been some great experiences. Yeah, they all connected right around Tommy, right. all around Tommy.
But it's also interesting too, because if you look in hindsight, actually, yes, Billy did get to manage, and that was one of your dreams, to manage the Dodgers. But then there was the whole, sale of the Dodgers and the cleaning house. Even though Bill succeeded there, he was swept out, right away. 4 years later, though, after that, you're back as part of Tom's staff as the pitching coach for the 2000 Olympic team. What do you think, for both of you, actually, what did winning a gold medal mean to you? And, of course, what did it mean to Tommy?
Well, I want to go back a little bit and tell you, when I managed Albuquerque and was the manager, and this was Tommy's. This is the way Tommy did things when he was managing. The AAA manager never really went over to the major league stadium. When I managed Albuquerque, I was in Vero Beach, in the minor league system, and they trained right there. But I was never over to the major league side. And I was telling Terry Collins that one day, and he says, "Don't feel bad. I was there 8 years, and I never got there either."
Yeah, Terry told me that too. That's hysterical, unbelievable.
So, but anyway, to get there and to be with Tommy and what it meant. You don't really realize until you get there and start playing and go to all the other events that are happening in the Olympics what it really means. And then when you win it, to see the gold medal presentation and guys crying. I saw Doug Mankiewicz crying. A lot of these pitchers and players were crying. And Tommy said it best, I think. He said, when you win a pennant or a World Series, you win it for your city. But when you win a gold medal, you win it for the country, and for our country. And I think that pretty much said it. It was one of the greatest experiences I think I've ever had in my life, is going to the Olympics and winning it and being with Tom Lasorda. He was tremendous.
So as long as we have you on with us tonight, let's talk a little Mets baseball. I know you have been a big Steven Matz supporter. Steven is coming off his worst season of his career, one in which he was put into the bullpen, struggled early starts to find his rhythm, pitched to a 9.68 ERA, which is unfathomable for such a talent. You have put some work already in this offseason with Steven. What can Met fans expect from him this spring training and hopefully this season?
Well, I personally think he is a favorite of mine. I had him down here in St. Lucie when I was a pitching coach here, and I've really been with him through his time here with the Mets, and he's one of the greatest kids you'll ever, or men now, that you'll ever see, and what he does and the way he goes about his business. So you want him to succeed. I mean, if you could be out at Citi Fields at 1-2 o'clock in the afternoon and see him and Jake DeGrom and the two bullpen coaches taking ground balls and hitting fly balls and pop-ups and just doing their fielding in the out and having fun, but they're out there playing the game because they love the game, and you got to give a lot of credit. Both of those guys are tremendous fielders, and they do that every day. They're there every day doing that. But Steven Matz, let me just get back to him. 2 years ago, he won 11 games. He won as many games as DeGrom, as Syndergaard, as Wheeler, did 2 years ago. I think this past year, you almost can write off a lot of records of the players because of the spring training we had. We started off, in spring training, then it stopped, and then they started again. So you kind of write it off a little bit. I think one of the things that I talked to Steve a lot about, and I watched all the games on television. That was my job this year, watching television, watching the games, which I had to report on, which I said somebody had to do it, so it might as well be me. But anyway, I watched Steven, and I saw that he was throwing the ball harder than I think I'd ever seen him throw it before. He was reaching 96, 97 miles an hour. But he was falling off a little bit toward third base. He was leaving the ball up. His curveball was flat, and that's a lot of the things that we had worked on here in the minor leagues. Also, Steve is he's very critical of himself. I think people think he gets mad, but it's just that he expects himself to be well, and he gets critical. You kind of see that sometimes on the mound. He's critical of himself, but. So one of the things we did when he came down here for a week was one of the drills I used to do with him all the time was I still tell him, I said, you remember the time when I came there and we were in Philadelphia and we threw in the outfield and you warm up, and I said, you're not getting your extension, you're not getting over the ball and reaching out and going. And he said, yeah. I said, remember what I told you? I said, when you finish your extension, if I can set my hat on your back and it doesn't fall off, that's pretty good extension. So he started doing it. I set my hat on his back and it didn't fall off. I said, now we're going from there. So that's one of the big things we started working on, throwing up the back of the mound. So he'd have to get his foot down and get out over the ball. He did really well. The ball started coming down for him. He wasn't falling off to the side. His curveball got much sharper. His changeup was unbelievable. And then when he left there, after a week, he was in such a positive mood, such a great spirit. He said, Phil, I'm going home. I'm going to build me a mound, a wooden mound indoors, and I'm going to work on all these things all winter long. And I do believe he has. I talked to him a couple of days ago, trying to find him a house down here for the spring down here in Port St. Lucie. And he told me he's been throwing this week. He started with our new catcher. Brad Brock is there. They're gonna be throwing, and he's working on all the things we talked about. So I think the people can expect to see a different Steve Matz. I think he learned a lesson. Even though you throw 97 miles an hour, you can't throw the ball by people in the major leagues, because after about 3 pitches, if you're throwing 100 miles an hour, that you can turn a pitching machine up to 100, and after three pitches, they've dialed it in. Yep. They can get that bat speed going. So it's a matter of pitching, changing speeds, hitting spots, and not just throwing the ball. And I think you're going to see a different Steve Matz.
Awesome. Met fans are praying for that. Lastly, we got about a minute before we have to go to break. It's pretty amazing the things you have witnessed in uniform. Obviously, seeing Koufax and Drysdale in their prime. 69, you're on the Cubs when the Black Cat runs on the field at Shea. You actually saw Roger Clemens strike out 20. against you. You actually saw Kerry Wood strike out 20 for you. You're the Orioles manager in 95. The magical year Cal Ripken breaks Lou Gehrig's record. You're there the day Mark McGwire breaks Roger Maris' single-season home run record, which is interesting to me because when the M&M boys were going at it, June 16th, 1961, the two of those guys went 0 for 8 against you. You struck out Maris 2 times. So of all those things, which was one of the moment that stands out for you being live at a stadium and seeing in uniform?
Well, I think they were all great, really. The Kerry Wood striking out 20 was really, really interesting story there. He threw 128 pitches, and I said to Jim Regan, who was the manager, he's got 128 pitches. What he said, 130 is his limit. I said, even if he don't strike, what if he struck? What do you get? He says he's coming out, but he struck out the last guy, so he ended up with the record. But I just say of all those things. And incidentally, there was another one. Wade Boggs got his 3,000 hit down in Florida off one of my pitchers. Hit a home run for his 3,000 hit. Wow. But I think Cal Ripken breaking that record because I guess maybe because I was with him all year, and you felt the buildup coming up and going on, and even to go back that year in spring training. I know you only got a minute, but to go back that our team, Baltimore, our owner did not believe in replacement players. Everyone else was playing. We did not have a team. And come Sunday night, Roland Heeman told all of our staff, "You can go home. I'll tell you in 10 days what we want you to do." We were going to forfeit 144 games. We were not going to play. The season was going to start on Tuesday. So being with all that and how it led up to it, and then Cal breaking the record, and how each night, as the last week, they have this big warehouse out in right field, and they had these signs, and the banners would come off. Yeah. And you kind of wait till the 5th inning. And really, no one thought a lot about it, I think, until the last week. It got so close. The players started standing on the top step every game and anticipating it. And I'll tell you, it was so emotional that there were a lot of tears. I can say I had tears in my eyes when he broke that record. It was tremendous.
Yeah, it was a magical year for sure. I remember watching that. Phil, thanks so much for your time tonight. I know I speak for the 100-plus Met fantasy campers who will be missing seeing you this year and can't wait to when things get back to normal and we can hang out with you and hear more great stories. So thanks so much for spending the time helping us remember Tommy as well as telling some great stories.
Okay, thank you, Mark, and good being with you. I look forward to seeing you.
You got it. The one and only Vulture, Phil Regan. We'll be back right after this message.
Do you own a business? When is the last time you actually had a visit from or even spoke with your insurance representative? Did your current insurance agency sell to another firm or maybe merge, leaving you without the attention you deserve? Prince Associates is a provider of commercial insurance nationwide and represents some of the finest insurance carriers in the industry. Prince Associates has been representing commercial clients since 1965, and we continue to grow and offer our personal services in a competitive and ever-changing market. If you want back the insurance relationship you deserve, reach out to us, 516-822-6550. That's area code 516-822-6550. And ask for Leith or Craig, or find us on the web at www.princeins.com.
Hi, this is Kenny Albert, and when I'm not calling a game for the Rangers or the Knicks, I'm listening to Sports Talk New York with Mark Rosenman and A.J. Carter.
And welcome back. If you just tuned in, you just missed a great 20 minutes with the Vulture, Phil Regan. Absolutely great guy. And if you're a Met fan, he gave you some optimistic news about Steven Matzo. It was really good, and we caught up about Tommy Lasorda. But now it's time for the NHL Report with Russ Cohn. It's sponsored by our friends over at Soho Table Hockey. What's table hockey, you say? Some of us might have grown up with the rod hockey or bubble hockey or even air hockey tables. Soho Table Hockey is embracing the nostalgia of those old tabletop games, designed it for a whole new board for the future. Handcrafted with designer wood, state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, energy-absorbing walls. This is a table hockey game that players age 8 to 80 can enjoy. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows the game to stand up to the intensity of tournaments, which is why Soho Table Hockey is the #1 choice of championship players throughout North America. Visit SohoTableHockey.com to learn more. Start your order on a custom game. You can choose your wood, a center ice logo, and even the team matchups. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing. How you doing, Russ?
Good, Mark. How are you?
Doing really good. So I guess the first thing we have to start off with is the Islanders finally did sign Matthew Barzal. And I guess, a lot of us made a big deal. He has to get into camp and he has to start playing. But in the same respect, Mika Zibanejad has not had that much rep in practice either. So how much will it affect him? And more so the contract and the way it's he signed could be problematic in the future, correct?
Yeah. So first thing is, it's definitely going to affect them. It doesn't matter if you're a star or not. When you miss that many games, scrimmages, there are no preseason games. So he's going to get to a few practices, and before you know it, the season's starting Wednesday. And so I think it will slow him off out of the gate, or at some point after the first 5 or 6 games, he'll feel it. And so that's not ideal. But the way this deal works is it escalates on the back end. And so what happens then there is on that year when he becomes a restricted RFA for one more time, you'll have to have a qualifying offer. And the qualifying offer, from what I understand, is about $11 million. And that's a lot higher than qualifying offers generally go in this league. As you know, the Rangers never get close to that with their guys. And so you could look at that one of two ways. One is if he stays for that year, he's getting a hell of a payday. Or two, the Islanders are going to try and trade him before that, so they don't have to pay him the $11 million if they don't want to pay him $11 million.
Russ, taking a look at the team generally, and you look at the offseason, they took care of what they had. They re-signed the people they needed to re-sign. They let go of the people they felt they had to because of cap reasons. But they didn't seem to have done what they really needed to get the big scorer in to improve the team. Have they improved, or is just status quo and trading water mean that you may or may not see even a repeat of what we saw last year?
No, I think they've improved in the sense that they brought in Ilya Sorokin, and so that's an upgrade for this moment as a backup goaltender, but he could become the everyday goaltender or give you a straight tandem that's better than Thomas Greiss. So that's an upgrade. Noah Dobson playing more time is going to be an upgrade, I believe. I think people will finally get to see a lot more of him and what more he can do. Guys like Pulick are still going to get better. So I think there's those things. I don't know how many youngsters will make the team. I don't know if someone like Wallstrom will make the team or not. But ultimately, if they just got slightly better in net, slightly better on defense, and I do think, bringing back Andy Green and those things, building depth on defense helps. I think they're in pretty good shape. They're definitely going to be a playoff team, but this isn't a division that has a clear-cut team that is going to, take the division. So if they can get some of their guys hot and have a little more scoring than we thought, if the push comes from the blue line or from wherever, they could win the division. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, you say that, but when I look at, their energy line, and listen, you got to love what these guys have given to the franchise over the years. But, Cizikas, and Clutterbuck and Matt Martin, I don't know if they fit in this NHL anymore. That's a line that, are they going to score? Are they going to be able, I understand that this year is different because every game is going to be a physical war because of the rivalries. But, how many minutes are you going to give those guys? And, if you're giving that ice time to those guys at the expense of a guy like you didn't even bring to camp and Josh Ho-Sung, what's the rationale for that?
Well, it is Barry Trotz hockey, and I do think you're right. This is going to, in many ways, be like the old Patrick division. And so I think they have it for that. Clutterbuck, look, if his back is halfway decent, he definitely can put up some points. Martin, a little bit. But Cizikas will put up points. He's going to set up somebody, and he's going to score a few goals. I mean, he's a decent point production guy. So I think it will be okay because it's Trotz as the coach. If this was a different coach, it might not be. But I think it'll work out for him.
All right, AJ mentioned it about the young players, and you touched upon it. You mentioned Sorokin, and obviously on the Rangers side you have Shesterkin, and then even the backups, between Georgiev and Varlamov. It's if it was a James Bond movie, it would be From Russia to Love. But will Shesterkin and Sorokin be the early version, the early debate of the Jeter or Donez, going back to that whole line of fandom and tweets before Twitter, but that was the rage back in the day when they both started out.
Yeah, I think it could be. I think it might take a little while for it to happen this year, more so on the Islander end, but I do think that's eventually going to happen. And look, division wise, then you could bring Samsonov into it too. I mean, when have we talked about three really good teams in the division all having Russian goalies like that? I don't know if that's ever happened in the East.
Lastly, unfortunately, the Devils' plans in goal have changed. Corey Crawford has retired. Where does that leave the Devils?
In a bad spot, because they Corey Schneider, went elsewhere, whether he was finished or not. Clearly, others didn't think so, like the Islanders. Scott Wedgwood is now going to be that number 2 goalie unless they bring in somebody else. And the other guys they have no NHL experience. So, and I think it's like Sens, and I can't remember who the other guy is. And so Wedgwood is the guy you really wanted to give a lot of time in the AHL too and let him be your third guy. So I think what they're going to do is Scott Darling was recently released from his PTO. I think they might bring in Darling. I know everybody says Jimmy Howard, but Jimmy Howard hasn't played at all.
Yeah.
And so that you getting him, it's going to take him longer to get up to speed. I understand Darling didn't look great for Florida, but really, honestly, you're just looking for a body here. Blackwood's going to play for a lot of the games now. So you're just looking for someone to give him a spell. And if Darling's not good, you can always send him down and bring Wedgwood up. But that way you at least early part of the season get Wedgwood some more games, because he is a goalie that has a bit of promise. I've liked him. It's just, we haven't seen a lot of him.
All right, Russ, we appreciate it. Russ Cohen here each and every week with the Soho Table Hockey NHL Report. Take a quick break. We're going to talk football with Jay Retcher right after this.
If you're a company looking to increase your visibility, to make sure your promotional materials get packaged in the most attractive way and distributed most efficiently, then you need to call in PIMS. Whether you're launching a new product and need to assemble customized influencer packages, or looking for a more efficient way to manage your inventory and collateral, PIMS involvement helps maximize the impact of your brand's performance. For more than 30 years, PIMS has been helping companies get their message out to the right people, offering personalized distribution services and full-scale inventory management solutions. PIMS works its magic on 3 continents, backed by 350,000 square feet of warehouse space. If you're looking for experience, PIMS is it. They've shipped more than 13 million packages and elevated more than 8,000 brands. Want to know more? Check them out on the web, PIMSinc.com. That's PIMSINC.com, and read testimonials from their satisfied clients. That's PIMS, the first name in marketing support.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York. Hope you're enjoying our show. Obviously, it seems like we've gotten all of the kinks from last week out of the way, and it's really good to be able to speak to everybody, all our beat guys. And it's time for the Capco NFL Report with Jay Retcher. Even though it's winter, spring will be here before you know it. Now is the time to get your windows and doors ready to let that fresh air in, which we really all need. All those bugs out with the Clearview retractable screen. The Clearview retractable screen system comes with the standard lifetime warranty and the patented speed reducer, so it will not snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door and a sleek, low-profile design without the hassle of a bulky storm door or sliding screen door. Call 631-440-1100 for a free estimate. That's 631-440-1100. Visit them on the web at clearviewlongisland.com. And so, Jay, first of all, I know you really want to go right off the bat. You want to talk Tampa Bay, so let's get that out of the way. Listen, you got to give the guy credit. He took his talents somewhere else. He took his team to the playoffs, and he won a playoff game. So tell us about Brady against a very tough Washington defense, which is one of the things that, back in the day when the Giants beat, Brady, it was get to the quarterback. And there was a similar game plan for Washington yesterday. But tell us what you saw in that game.
Yeah, watching that game, you look at the offensive line for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and, they heard what Chase Young was saying. I want Tom, and Chase Young was not a factor. The only thing Chase Young did last night was point to the back of Tyler Heineke after he scored that touchdown. That was the majority of the time that you saw him out there. But, yeah, you got to give Tom Brady credit, man. At 43 years old, he's just still playing at an extremely high level. Buccaneers didn't play the best game, but when they get Devin White, their middle linebacker, next week when he comes back, I think that's going to help the defense out a lot. But Taylor Heineke, he played really well for the Washington football team. But Bucs move on, and they have a great matchup coming up next week. You got to find out, and we'll find out when we see who wins this game between the Bears and the Saints.
which is, if you're looking for that game, I think it aired right after Hey Dude and Good Burger on the Nickelodeon network with some green slime as well. One of the things that I was so confused, and maybe because I was just overdosed with so much football yesterday, but in the Bills-Colts game, with Rivers taking him down the field, okay, he threw a pass which was ruled a completion, and they got up to the line, and then the Bills took their final timeout. And they did that strategically so the referees would review the play because it was the last minute of play, or last 2 minutes of play. But it's interesting because I believe they still had a challenge left. So it was kind of strange that even if they had that timeout left, why didn't they just throw the challenge flag right away? Why did they risk the referees not taking a look at that, and they almost risked the fact of not getting that time out in time, which would have been, that could have cost them a game.
Yeah, I think they just overthought it, Mark. You're one of a bunch of people that look at it like that, and it's so weird that you think with these head coaches and these coaching staffs with these years and years of experience, hell, they have game clock coaches on staff, and they still make decisions like that. So, yeah, a head-scratching decision there. But Buffalo, man, I'll tell you what, that's a team that nobody wants to play right now. Josh Allen playing at an MVP level in that defense with contributions from everybody. What a great signing Stephon Diggs was, or acquisition he was in the offseason, man. Buffalo's a team you have to keep your eye on.
And a team that finally was able to get over that hurdle. The Ravens, Titans, a very good game. I mean, it was billed the quarterback versus the running back, and the quarterback won. Tell us what you saw in that game.
Yeah, I mean, watching that game, and Lamar said it right after the game, it's not Lamar against Derrick Henry, it's the Titans against the Ravens. But I look at J.K. Dobbins, that touchdown run that he had there to give the Ravens the lead for good, and the patience that he ran with behind the offensive line. You knew Lamar was going to run the football, and he was able to kind of get away from that Titans defense and make a difference. I thought if Baltimore was going to have a chance in this game, they had to hit Derrick Henry, punch him right in the mouth early and often. That's exactly what they did, led by McPhee, Judon, and Calais Campbell. I mean, Baltimore's another team. They have to throw the football better if they want to advance and be able to put up points like we see that Buffalo and Kansas City can do. But, man, that was an inspired performance today against Tennessee.
The Rams, pretty much considered an upset. You're considering they didn't have their quarterback. They go and beat Seattle, which, I don't know what it is with Seattle. I always think that, I always rate them higher than they actually are for some reason. I guess it goes back to the day, but, you got to look at it, and it's almost like the 86 through 90 New York Mets. They have all the pieces, but they put it together once, but didn't really do, I don't know. I just think there's something off with that team that just, they're always a disappointment. And I would imagine the fan base has got to be kind of disappointed given, they've had this quarterback who's such a dynamic quarterback and really haven't done, I don't think they've lived up to expectations.
Yeah, that's an interesting assessment because you think about back to the Legion of Boom, all those guys are gone. They make the acquisition for Jamal Adams. That definitely helps their defense, and they have two stud linebackers in Wagner and KJ Wright. But where's their pass rush? Their pass rush has really struggled. Their defense didn't play well until really the second half of the year, but then their offense struggled. And we see DK Metcalf get locked down by Jalen Ramsey when he gets taken out of the ballgame. How do they make the adjustments? They haven't been able to figure that out. They don't run the ball consistently enough. Chris Carson's always banged up, seems, throughout the year. You love Tyler Lockett, but you're right. There's something off in Seattle. They got to fix it because Pete Carroll's not getting any younger, and neither is Russell Wilson.
Lastly, you got to feel for the Browns and their fan base. They finally make it. Their head coach is not there. A bunch of their players are not there. They didn't practice. I'm thinking that the Steelers are going to blow them out. Any chance the Browns have of upsetting the Steelers tonight?
Yes, and the reason why I think so is because they run the football. They're going to have that two-headed monster of Nick Chubb and also Kareem Hunt, and Pittsburgh doesn't do that well. If Cleveland can get them going one-dimensional and not running the football and having those guys spread out, even though the secondary is a weakness for Cleveland, I think that plays right in their hands. So if Pittsburgh's running the ball well, that doesn't bode well for the Cleveland Browns, but I definitely see them having a chance in that game tonight.
Awesome. All right, Jay, thanks so much. And, I think most of America needs new couches after this weekend. 6 football games is an awful lot. We'll speak to you next week.
Thanks. I'm actually at Amalie Arena watching the Lightning's final practice right now, so I'm thinking about you, brother. I'll talk to you next week.
You got it, Jay. Jay Retcher with the Capco NFL report. We're going to take a quick break with a message from the Phoenix Tube Company, and then after that, we'll be back with the NBA report with Chaim Tauber.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural ornamental stainless steel tubing, rectangles, squares, and processed flat bars. The company takes pride in its everyday commitment to quality and customer service. The philosophy of the company has been and continues to be to support the growth of the stainless tube market through distribution and service centers throughout the country. Ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing is used for a wide variety of aesthetic and mechanical products where superior finish and corrosion resistance are required. Some products manufactured include tubing for mirror bracket arms, boat rails and ladders, washroom grab bars, swimming pool rail products, medical equipment, automotive step bars and trimming, as well as structural framing for food processing equipment. For a quote or for more information on how the Phoenix Tube Company can meet your ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing needs, visit them on the web at phoenixtube.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-526-2124.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York. I hope you're enjoying the show. It's time now for the NBA report. And for the first time since the 2012-2013 season, the New York Knicks have a winning record after 8 games. So what do you think has been the big turnaround for the Knicks? Well,
I mean, there have been a couple of them. The obvious ones, impossible to ignore what Julius Randle has become under Coach Thibodeau. The guy is in immense shape. He's making passes and displaying court vision that nobody's ever seen before. I've been watching Julius Randle since high school. He has never passed like this. The other big difference is the defensive intensity. If you look at the games that they've won, they're holding high-scoring teams to a significantly lower scoring output when they play them. Teams that are averaging 120 end up scoring about 108, 112 against them. And that's kind of keeping them in the running. They haven't had a dominant offensive player, with the exception of Randall. They don't have a go-to point scorer. They are playing defense and they are hustling. And to any fan of the Knicks, back from when they were successful, back when Coach Thibodeau was here the first time around, those are the sweetest sounds you could hope to hear.
I think the most interesting thing, I was watching one of the games a couple of games ago, and I was Mike Breen or it was Clyde Frazier took a look at the end of the game and said, this is a well-coached team. And you couldn't really say that about the Knicks for the last number of years. But how much of this is fool's gold? They're losing big right. They're trailing big right now. They've come back from big deficits before. They lose tonight. They're back to being a 500 team, right? Or under 500. And, what do we have to look at for the rest of the season? I think, should Knicks fans expect that there's a possibility of this being a 500 team?
Well, yeah. So the first thing I would say is that, hold off on the parade. And, Knicks fans have been celebrating 5-3 way too loudly, way too happily. And I'm not saying they shouldn't, given, the utter desolation that's been the Garden for the past 15 years. But, no, this is a team that is still talent deficient. It's going to be on display tonight against Denver. There are going to be some games that you expect the Knicks to have no chance in, like the Milwaukee game, and they come out on top. But for the most part, they're going to be at a talent disadvantage most nights. They've been playing without Alec Burks, who I expect to be one of their top scorers this season, for most of the season so far. And the points have to come from somewhere. And each night it's either Austin Rivers going out of his mind, doing his best, Steph Curry or Reggie Miller, depending on your era at the end of a game. Kevin Knox showing something out of a corner. Julius Randle, the other night in the loss, he had nothing in the first half, and then he decided to start looking for the ball. It's coming from different places, which is a nice thing to see. But when you're running up against a Denver or a team like that, one of those West Coast powers, by and large, you hope for competition. You hope to see them compete. You hope to see them hustle. You hope to see some growth on the part of the youngsters. Hopefully Mitchell Robinson stays out of foul trouble. But in terms of as far as playoffs, I think if you're a Knicks fan, the best you could hope for is sneak into a 7 or 8 seed and be really, really happy that you can talk about playoffs.
Wednesday night, Knicks-Nets. That's when Knicks-Nets. Game worth watching, exciting game. I think it'll be a blowout.
Just for the storyline to begin with, it's a game worth watching. The whole conversation about who runs New York now, what's going on with Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant first coming back. And the fact that the Nets are shorthanded. The Spencer Dinwiddie injury hurt them badly in terms of their depth. The Knicks are nothing but depth. They don't have a top-line scorer. They just have, well-rounded hustle and heart. I think it could be a fun watch. It could be one that it's a complete massacre, depending on what Kevin Durant does, because he is that alpha, and the Knicks don't have an answer to that.
A minute to go, Chaim. I just want to touch on LaMelo Ball's triple-double, youngest player to do that. Unbelievable company that he joined. What do you made of his early season?
Well, I mean, he's impressive, and he was the early favorite for Rookie of the Year. I think he probably still is. As far as records and plaudits, I mean, who did he beat? Luka? That was, a year ago? I mean, in terms of records history book, I wouldn't get too excited, but the fact that he's not turning the ball over and that he's starting to be able to facilitate a little better, when the game comes to him, he's going to get better. And as long as his shot selection's okay, I think he's going to be an impact player in this league, and certainly in Charlotte.
Awesome, Chaim. Thanks so much. And we're just going to keep AJ on the phone because he is doing the show socially distanced for his Sunday papers. We don't have a theme song yet. AJ, you got about a minute, so give me one of your
we'll do something fast. Let's talk a little about that sport. We don't talk about which is soccer. We talk about records. So Pele, a soccer name that we all know from years ago, held the record for most goals scored for a single team, 643, until about 3 weeks ago, when FC Barcelona forward Lionel Messi broke the record by scoring 644th goal for the club. He had a deal with Budweiser. They celebrated by doing 644 bottles of beer, each one numbered
on the wall
to represent the goal that he scored. They took that and sent that bottle of Budweiser beer to the goal he scored it off of. So, former Athletic Bilbao goalie Gorka Irizarry got 18, 3 six-packs. Nice night. And 2 other goalies got 17 each. So we could have a nice night on Lionel Messi, thanks to Budweiser, and thanks to the fact they let in some goals.
When you said 600, bottles of beer on the wall, it started singing in my head. All right, so
counting them down.
So we still have a great slate on the 365 network tonight. You can have BT Talks Baseball right up in the launch pad in Huntington. He's going to follow us. Right after that, we got Carpin's Corner with Howie Carpin with the great Kevin Kernan, and then we wrap up the evening with Rich Catino's Mets Clubhouse Confidential. So please keep it tuned right here, whether it be on your Android app, whether it be streaming over the 365 Sportscast.com page or your Alexa app. You just have to enable the skill, the 365 Sportscast skill, and say, play 365 Sports. We will see you next week. We're glad that we are starting slowly but surely to get all the technical kinks out, and we've done the maintenance on the back end. So hopefully this sounded great tonight, and we really enjoyed being back with you.
Yep. See you next week, Mark.
See you next. Well, we won't see you. We'll hear you because you're still going to be socially distanced. Or maybe we can get, maybe we'll make you like Bubble Boy and just put you in a bubble here. And then
I went to have dinner in an igloo last night. Which was safe. So if we can broadcast from an igloo, maybe we can do that.
Yeah, just don't say the moops, all right? All right. AJ Carter signing off there. Like we said, he is, he's old, so he doesn't want to be around us, and we respect that. So basically, we're going to have Brett's going to start coming in, get his show ready. BT Talks Baseball up next. Johnny Damon is one of his guests tonight. Also, I heard it on the way home last week. It was great listening to the travel log. And I have a new place in Philly as far as cheesesteaks to get to. I heard that. So really good stuff. And his author spots. It's a great show. Watch the football game with the sound off, listening to BT Baseball. Have a great week, everybody. It's been a lot of fun, and it's great getting back in the saddle. So we'll see everyone next week. Have a great week, everybody.